This dissertation offers an explanation of why indigenous Black Africans were not alienated from Islam despite the existence of alleged prophetic traditions and legal teachings in the Maliki School of Law which disparage and discriminate against Black Africans. It asserts that while color-based prejudice is fairly recent in human history, Black antipathy, on the other hand, is a perennial phenomenon. The equatorial and sub-Saharan Bantu-speaking cannibalistic Black has been caricatured by a number of ancient writers as the prototypical savage. This dissertation asserts that it is from this caricature that the concept of the Negro was formulated. The fact that pre-modern cultures largely identified as cultural rather than biological races, unlike what is often the case today, made it easier for most Africans to dispense with Black disapprobation, which sometimes manifested itself in Muslim society and Islamic literature. The title of my doctoral dissertation is The Negro in Afro-Arabian Muslim Consciousness. The assertion is that the Negro and the African are not completely conterminous from the standpoint of anthropological classification. Certainly, the term Negro has been utilized in America to refer to any person discovered as possessing any degree of sub-Saharan Black African heritage. We know, however, that the Sahara is merely a part of the African continent, and its surrounding inhabitants represent only a portion of its people. In addition, for the early Arabs and other Muslims, both the idea of a continent and one bordering Arabia called Africa would have been unfamiliar territory. The only Africa that any of them would have been familiar with would have been Ifriqiya, that is the northwestern sector comprised of Libya, Algeria, and Tunisia, a name popularized during the Roman Empire's rule of that region. The term Negro is believed to have come into English during the transatlantic slave trade as a convenient way to describe, quote unquote, uncivilized sub-Saharan Blacks, especially those who were enslaved. The Arabic English lexicographers Hans Wehr and J.G. Hava both translate the Arabic word Zanj as Negro. The word Zanj was used by medieval Arabs as a general reference to East Africans near the Horn of Africa, and more specifically for Bantu-speaking cannibals, originally from the region of Zanzibar. This is despite the fact that the term's history extends well beyond the creation of the English word Negro. So to consider them to be perfect synonyms appears to be inappropriately retroactive and anachronistic. There is, however, good reason to consider this translation to be fitting. From Arabic lexicographers, we learn that the Zanj, the word for Negro, live near or below the equator. Secondly, we know that they have black skin. Then a third note about the Zanj is that they are not the, but a group of Blacks, which underscores the fact that pre-modern anthropologists did not view all Blacks in homogeneous terms. This is important for our discussion, since as already suggested, the Zanj may have been Black, but not all Blacks were affiliated with the Zanj. On the other hand, the Oxford English Dictionary defines the Negro as a member of a dark-skinned group of peoples originally native to sub-Saharan Africa. This primary definition of the Negro corresponds with the Arabic Zanj in that the Negro is, 1, a person with black skin, and 2, a person who originates from sub-Saharan Africa. Perhaps one subtle distinction which can be made is that in terms of latitude, the Zanj is a sub-equatorial person, while the Negro is characterized merely as sub-Saharan. Despite this subtlety, both the sub-Sahara and equatorial regions are known to be lands inhabited by Blacks, which would strongly suggest translational equivalency between the two terms, Zanj and Negro. especially since, as certain Arabic lexicographers highlight, that some hold that the Zunj region extends from Ethiopia and parts of the Nile in the east to the Maghreb on the western coast. Another important point is that realities precede their designations. That the word Negro was adopted during the transatlantic slave trade does not necessitate that the concept of the uncivilized black did not exist in other cultures prior to that period. This is no more the case than the tenuous notion that just because ancient people did not have a concept of continent, that the landmass we describe today as Africa did not exist. For there are countless words in various languages invented to describe a variety of objects, inventions, discoveries, concepts, and phenomena which already existed in the lives and minds of people. So to argue that words like city, stone, wheat, horse, or wisdom are English words whose pronunciation differs greatly from their synonyms in other languages, or that they were simply borrowed from them in a certain century, would be to suggest that the history of a concept or phenomenon begins with the invention of its popular designation. Even the racialized terms white, black, and Arab are utilized throughout this dissertation, have been in constant flux over the centuries. In addition, the fact that Negro lost many of its more negative connotations during 20th century America does not prove that it was not originally utilized to describe a stark-naked, cannibalistic human being from East Africa. According to historian John G. Jackson, in the literature on Africa, Africans are commonly identified in two groups, one progressive, the other backward. The progressive peoples are called Hamites, Cushites, Moors, etc., whereas the backward ones are called Negroes.